All right, well, good afternoon, and thank you very much, Morgan, for the introduction, and thanks to everybody who's decided to spend a part of their afternoon with us. We appreciate your time today. As Morgan mentioned, the topic of today is demystifying smartSECTION. I know that many of you have seen this tool sitting on top of your desktop, but you haven't really understood what it can do for you, and I aim to solve that mystery today. The primary goals of our webinar are to demonstrate smartSECTION's interpretive capabilities, to review how to efficiently build different kinds of cross-sections in a high-performance environment, and finally I'm going to use a live demo format to illustrate the preferred workflows. First, I'd like to just talk a little bit about smartSECTION. First of all, as I mentioned, it's readily available on most GeoGraphix packages. You just basically have to open up your Project Explorer and click on the smartSECTION icon. smartSECTION is a very powerful 3D geologic modeling software that has a great topological engine that contains tools for sequence stratigraphic and structural analysis. What does that mean? Basically, it can easily differentiate and display different surface intersections and different geometries. Given this power, it can accurately identify and display unconformities, on-lap and off-lap relationships, fault intersections and fault gapping, as well as other geologic stratal and structural features. If you own the frame builder model, you can also do real-time mapping. The mapping will show up as you're picking your surfaces in your cross-section. It also integrates geophysical and geological interpretations, because if you have size vision, you can actually hang your seismic data behind the wells in cross-section view. And finally, it's also an avenue to the advanced horizontal well correlation and geosteering tools that are provided in our SmartStrat model. The beauty of these is that you can actually control your horizontal borehole within the context of a true 3D geologic model. Today I'm going to focus on how this powerful geologic modeling software can quickly help us correlate and visualize stratigraphic relationships. This first webinar focuses primarily on the basics of creating cross-sections in a high-performance environment. In the near future, we will have additional webinars that focus on the advanced geological tools that enable more detailed structural and stratigraphic analysis, as well as probably one on horizontal drilling. Here we've got a classic example of a map shown in Frame Builder and a cross-section that shows how we can easily visualize and display an unconformable surface as it truncates an underlying pay zone. Here's the unconformity displayed showing the truncation with an underlying surface. The specific topics I'm going to cover are how to maximize performance in smartSECTION, and I'm not really referring to optimizing the hardware. I'm referring to configuring the software so that it will run on any decent hardware. I'm also going to show you how to build projected lines of section, how to build cross-section templates, how to build well-to-well cross-sections, and finally how to pick tops in smartSECTION. Now, before one builds a cross-section, there are 6 easy tasks that you need to perform in order to maximize smartSECTION's performance and ensure a sound geologic model. The tasks to properly configure the software include the creation of a study area within your project that will maximize the correlation performance. We can use filters to do this. The selection of your favorite Geo Atlas layers that you'll already have in your project area. The selection of the specific desired data sources, not only of the current data, but of future data you will be creating. And also the verification of the chronostratigraphic order of your formation tops. This is a very important part of smartSECTION. You're also going to want to select the formation tops that you're going to want to model and create surfaces for. Once you get these first 5 items done, then you can save them all to what's called a smartSECTION interpretation, basically just another word for a working session. Performing all these tasks is really key to establishing the correct geologic model. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get out of this, minimize that, and we're going to go live here. Today we're going to work in what's called a brand new interpretation or a working session in Wyoming. This way I can best illustrate the steps to setting up your own interpretation and maximizing smartSECTION's performance. I'm going to be using a project consisting of wells drilled in the Minaloosa Formation in the Powder River Basin, Wyoming. Erosional topography at the top of the Minaloosa plays a prime role in the entrapment of hydrocarbons in many fields that produce from this area. As I work in this area, you will see evidence of this the cross-cutting and evidence of erosion that occurs and how it cuts down into the producing formations. More importantly, I'm going to demonstrate how we can use smartSECTION's 3D modeling capabilities to accurately and very easily enable us to interpret in these kinds of environments. All right, I'm going to go ahead and open up a brand new interpretation or working session. I'm just going to close this one out. And when I open a brand new one, all these things that were here before are going to go away. And all we're going to be left with, I'm going to go in here, I'm going to load all the wells in my project, turn on a couple little tools I'll explain in a minute. Open this up. smartSECTION's unique in that by default it wants to look at all the well data in a project, even if you do have a smaller AOI active. In this case, I do have a smaller area. Therefore, a project with hundreds of thousands of wells can act lethargic when it's first opening up. Therefore, and this is because the software is trying to access hundreds of tops in hundreds or thousands of wells and make mathematical calculations on all these tops so that it can generate surfaces. The first step to maximizing the performance, therefore, is we need to create a filter that will limit how much work smartSECTION needs to accomplish at any one time. And to do this, we're going to select an area on the map, create a filter that will define the group of wells to be interpreted. These filters are very easily created or may already exist, since all filters previously made by you in GeoAtlas and WellBase are automatically available. To see the filters that are available, you'll just go up to Edit, Interpretation Options, and you would see a list of all the filters that you've ever made. Now we're going to assume that there isn't a filter made so that I can show you how to make a new one. Basically, you're going to come up to the Select tool and just click and drag a box around the area that you're interested in. Do a right mouse button, select View Wells in WellBase, and WellBase is going to open up. As you all know, in WellBase we can create spatial filters, and sure enough, one was created that has approximately 83 wells in it. Now we could use this temporary filter, but it's much better to go ahead and pop into Query Builder, another one of our GeoGraphix modules, select this spatial filter that I just created, run the filter, here's our 83 records, and save it as a new filter. I'm just going to call this the webinar afternoon session. Once I save it, I can go ahead and close up Query Builder, close up WellBase, and I can come back to Edit Interpretation Options. I'm going to go ahead and say Load Wells on Demand. I only want to see the wells that are within my webinar afternoon session. So I'm going to click Add Filter. When I do that, what it's basically saying is, oh, these are the only wells that she wants to currently model and work with. The nice thing, however, though, is all the other wells can still be at our disposal to be instantly added. And the way we can do that is by selecting the Geo Atlas layers that we know and love, and just go out here to Geo Atlas Layers, select Layers, and go to those existing layers that you already have in your project. Most of the geologists I work with like to choose their land grid. They like to choose a base map they're familiar with, and perhaps you want to choose your favorite ISOPAC map, maybe the unit that you're currently producing out of or interpreting. So you just pick your surfaces or your layers, and the layers are going to be located here under Geo Atlas Layers in your data tree, and you can go ahead and turn these on and off. Now if I just click here, all the wells will be available to you. If you want to just see, again, which wells are in your modeled area, you can just turn off your base map from GeoAtlas or turn it on again. The nice thing is even though that data set here in the filtered data set is readily available to model, if there's a well up here that you wish to add, you just click on the well, do a right mouse button and say load well into the interpretation, and that new well will be added and included in your geologic model. So there's no limitations to what you can include. After you select your layer and your filters, the next step is it's really important to define your preferred sources, the source of the information that you're going to use in your model. To do that, we're going to return to Edit, but this time we're going to choose Saved Source. This box serves two purposes. It establishes which source is going to be used to display the tops in your cross-section, and more importantly, it establishes what source new tops are going to be associated with. This is extremely important because it's here that you establish the integrity of your data that you're going to be using. So you're probably all familiar with Source Manager. It is the manager that controls what sources are used in Wellbase, and now the same will be true for smartSECTION. We put all our sources on the selected source hierarchy side, and as you know, the source that's at the top is going to be the source that's going to be displayed and used first. If the first source, it does not have a pick associated with it, it goes to the second, third, and so on. I highly recommend using your own personal user-defined source list and eliminating all sources that you don't like or you don't think are very good because they can ruin a model. So it's very important to choose your sources wisely. I'm not going to change my source here. I'm going to leave it alone. If you are not at the top of your source manager list, I strongly recommend that you choose Save Using Entered Source. The meaning of this is that any time you actually do change a top in your cross-section, you want it to be associated to your name because you don't want to necessarily be altering somebody else's top. If you associate it to your own name, then in the Formations tab in Wellbase, you will see the original person's top and then your own still preserved. So this is a very important part of using this software. I'm just going to go ahead and cancel out since I do like my source. Next, it's very important to establish the chronostratigraphic order of your formations that you're going to be used. So you're going to go up to Tools, Data Managers, and go get Strat Column Manager. You're probably all familiar with Strat Column Manager because it controls the formations that are displayed and utilized in Wellbase. What happens here is that smartSECTION uses algorithms and a geologic model that assumes that the younger formations are shallower than the older and deeper formations, and it bases all its modeling calculations on this assumption. Therefore, it's very important to go to Strat Column Manager and verify the strat order of the formations being used. If there are formations that you're never really going to use, because I know several of you have hundreds of formations in Strat Column Manager, don't worry about those formations because we will choose not to model them. However, the formations that you do want to model, you need to make sure they're in correct strat order. In order to do that, you just basically highlight a formation name, you click up or down, you click the Update Strat Order button, close it up, and then it will re-put all those formations in correct order. I'm not changing anything, so I'm just going to leave. Finally, now that we've defined our preferred list of sources, our formations are in good stead, we want to actually go select which formations we're going to build our cross-sections on, build our maps on, and actually model. So we're going to go up to the GeoSurfaceModel Properties tool. This is probably the most important tool in all of smartSECTION. So I'm going to click on that. This is where you actually tell the software which formations you wish to model. You can model faults in the Faults tab or surfaces in the Surface tab. Basically, all you do is come in here and highlight the formations that you wish to model. I recommend staying, probably maxing out around 20 or 30 formations at one time because remember, it's going to go out, it's going to look at every single well in your filtered data set. It's going to look at all these formations. So as you're working, it's going to be generating all these calculations and algorithms and creating these surfaces for your map. Another very important feature that we've recently actually added is that you can actually equate one of these surfaces to an isomap grid. So if you've got either a hand-contoured map or a seismic map, time-depth converted seismic map that you've brought into Geo Atlas and that you've done a contour-to-grid function on, that you've got a gridded surface, you can equate a smartSECTION surface to any gridded surface and actually view that surface in the cross-section. So it's a very powerful tool. There are a lot of other things that smartSECTION does that I don't have time to speak about today, but we will be discussing in the future, including the very important Surface Constraints tab, which enables you to actually constrain a deeper, less picked surface to a shallower, better understood and picked surface. So there are several advantages to using this software. I'm going to go ahead and just say, okay, we've selected all the formations that I'm going to work with today. Now, once you've done all of this, you don't need to redo it again tomorrow morning when you come into work. What we can do is save all these features that we've just done to a new interpretation. So I'm just going to go ahead and say File, Save Interpretation, and create the name of, let's just call it the afternoon session. Again, this is all live, so nothing canned here. So we've just created this session so that in the future when I open up smartSECTION, go into Project Explorer, it'll say which interpretation do you want to open, and you would open this interpretation that has all these features saved. Let's see, before I continue, are there any questions on what I've covered so far? John, has anyone asked anything?
Hi, Bev. No one's asked anything yet, but I just wanted to emphasize a point about the surfaces that you choose to model. Not sure if you mentioned that you can actually choose as a source of one of your surfaces an existing isomap grid.
I actually did just finish mentioning that, John. But.
And given that, it's common for people, particularly who are drilling horizontal wells, to have such an isomap grid that consists of data from seismic, from well base, and possibly from interwell points that they picked in smartSECTION. So just be aware out there, everybody, that's a very, very, very powerful feature of smartSECTION. You can use a surface that you've really tweaked, and you can use it to constrain others, particularly your drilling targets when you're going horizontal.
That is true, John. That's probably the most single-used feature with folks that are doing horizontal drilling, especially they like to create a surface down there that's their target zone. You can actually get so detailed in smartSECTION as to say, I want a surface to be created that's 15 feet below a very well-established surface, and you can use that as your target.
Right. Another point real quickly that was asked earlier is the surface can come from another software package. So if you have a software package, a seismic package other than SeisVision, perish the thought, you can actually export XYZs and bring those into isomap and create your gridded surface and use that in smartSECTION to constrain your other surfaces in terms of your horizontal drilling targets. So you're not constrained to SeisVision.
Thanks, John. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is show you how to create a projected line of section. The projected line of section is very useful in this software to see what the overall geology of our area is and to be able to quickly pinpoint areas where more interpretations are needed and or changes need to be made to our interpretations. You can get a quick overview of the integrity of the surface of your surfaces in any project that you currently have, even without bringing wells into the cross-section. I'll show you what I mean. So you go to cross-section, define projected, and you just go ahead and click 2 or more points anywhere across your area. Go ahead and do a right mouse button and select End Definition. Instantly, a cross-section window opens up, and I'm going to go ahead and choose the Full Extents tool. Then what I can do is come in and zoom in on my surfaces. Now remember, these surfaces aren't black box magic technology. They're just surfaces that are based on all the pics that you have made in the surrounding wells that are being stored in well base. So the nice thing here is you can come across and see the thickening and thinning relationships that exist. Here, for example, is our unconformity cutting down into the underlying units. Okay, so you can see for the first time really what's going on between wells within your project area. Now before I continue, I'd like to take a minute to focus on the 4 tabs in the lower left side of the cross-section view window. They are the Wells, Templates, Surfaces, and Active Well tab, and each tab has its own use when making cross-sections. Let's start with the Wells tab here. It basically is going to list the wells that are in the cross-section and or the location points, either in lat long or XY, used to select our projected line of section. The blue dots or the circles denote these location points. If wells were loaded into the cross-section, we would see a list of unique well IDs here. Now we're going to go ahead and add a well to our cross-section. We can do this one of many ways. One is we could just click on the plus sign and choose one of the wells from our modeled data set. Or we can go ahead and come up to our map, and all I need to do is basically, I'll zoom in a little bit here so we can see what we're doing. You just come in here, make sure that your cross-section is active, and you click on a well, select the well name from the list, do a right mouse button and say Add Well to Active Cross-Section. I'm just going to do this to a couple of wells here. Get a producing well. And instantly when you do that, you're going to get the wells showing up in the cross-section as stick figures along. So here is an example of that. All right. Now we're soon going to put a well log image into that stick figure, but bear with me for just a moment. Okay, going on with our tabs, and oh, by the way, you can see here where we now have our 3 wells, our API numbers listed. You can always change the position of a well by clicking the up or down arrow. We can flip or reverse the order of the cross-section, and if we did have deviated wells, we could even flip the well bore orientation. So there are many different things you can do here in this Wells tabs. Now, in the Templates tab, we will soon have what's called a cross-section template. This is equivalent to the X-section cross-section templates. Basically, it contains the look and feel of the cross-section, such as the distance between the wells, whether the wells are displayed as straight or deviated wells, well-related header data, what color your surface is going to be. All these things can be basically frozen in time and used over and over again by just coming into the Templates tab and selecting them. The Surfaces tab is where we actually see which surfaces we're working with. You can highlight a surface and you'll see these little squares appear here that will highlight that surface in the cross-section. You can actually click on a surface, do a right mouse button, go into Display Properties and change the color, weight, and style of that surface. You can also turn a surface off if you don't want to see it. So basically it's kind of surface management, if you will. Remember, the only surfaces that you will see in this tab are the ones that you chose to model in the GeoSurfaceModel Properties box. So if you want to pop in there and go ahead and get more surfaces, that's fine. You can add new surfaces, you can take them away anytime you wish. So I always have this particular tab open when I'm doing my interpretations. Finally, and I think most importantly, is the Active Well tab. The beauty of the Active Well tab is that you can get the Select tool, click on any well in your cross-section, and instantly see all the available data for that well. So in this case, we have some curve data. If we had a raster log image, which I'll show later on, underneath log images, you would see all the different log images listed. More importantly, all those Prism templates you've built over the years and put in your project folder are also instantly available to you so that you can bring in any template that you're used to using to display your curves. I'd like to make a comment that we also now create our raster templates in Prism. They're very nice looking. You can have multiple tracks of multiple raster images all showing at one time. We went ahead and shipped several raster templates with the software, but at any time, and if we have time later on, you can pop into these raster templates, change them, add things like DST postings, do anything you want to that raster image and display it in your cross sections. So this is just a great tab, don't forget it, to quickly and easily access all the well data in exactly the correct template that you wish. While I'm here, I'm going to go ahead and the way you do this is you just select the template you want. You do a right mouse button and you either apply it to the active well or apply as a default log template to all the wells. So I'm just, now this is a true space cross-section that's spanning a pretty large area here, so these wells are fairly far apart. But here you can go and see this particular log template that I've shown. Okay. One important thing to note is that the previous X section raster templates that you've built cannot be used in smartSECTION. So you will need to take a little bit of time to recreate some of your favorite raster log templates. But once you've got them, you're ready to work with them. Now that we've established and gotten our log image to show up, we want to kind of I hesitate to say beautify, but kind of make our cross-sections a little more palatable by going in and using the 7 tabs that control the display preferences for our cross-section. I tend to just click on the oil derrick, it's my favorite tool, and this will open up basically all 7 tabs and put them at your disposal. So I like to work from left to right, and here basically the Wells Logs tab enables you, again, if you wanted to, it acts like the active well tab. You can select a well, you can see what available data there is for that specific well, you can change the template of that well, and you can associate it to maybe other more sophisticated curves in Prism or UDEs that you have created. So it's basically where you set the templates, the log templates that you're going to be using. The Layout tab is where you're going to establish the horizontal and vertical scalings for your cross-section. What's that vertical scale that you wish to use? What's the horizontal? In smartSECTION, we can go ahead and do equally spaced wells, proportionally spaced wells when we're in a well-to-well cross-section, or the projected cross-section, which basically is going to be a proportional display of your well data. In addition, when you're in a projected cross-section or in a proportional cross-section, you can have the choice of choosing a deviated well bore path and showing your wells in a deviated manner. You can also display your wells as in measured depth. So this is basically where we choose how we want to display the horizontal and vertical scalings. The Surfaces tab is very similar to the other Surfaces tab. The only difference is that you can actually choose to put posting properties. For example, you could choose to post the name of each surface between wells, before and last wells. You can change the fonts, the colors, everything you need to do to make those surfaces look good. The Faults tab is where you would choose which faults you wish to see in your cross-section. The Display Options tab basically looks, you can turn on various items related to the different packages of smartSECTION. For example, we have some geosteering information. We can control specific things about the raster headers. And most importantly, if you had picked intervals in your project, such as net sand, net pay, etc., intervals, you could choose to display them as well. The digital header tabs is identical to X section, so it's something you're very familiar with. You can come in here and go ahead and select different items that you wish to post at the top underneath your symbol. Marginalia is most probably frequently used by the horizontal drilling folks because they want to have a really good concept of the scale of their cross-section. You can put a nice graphic scale behind your wells and a vertical and a horizontal scale down to 2 feet if you wish, so you can keep that borehole tracking exactly where you want it. So all these display preferences are going to lead to us to beautifying our cross sections, and then what we're going to do is actually save the look and feel as a template. I forgot to do one thing. Probably the best thing in layout is you can come down here and also, just like X section, go ahead and clip or trim your wells so that the part that you're not really concerned about, you can go ahead and get rid of, and then you have a much cleaner look to exactly what you're working with and doing. So I'm going to go over here and maybe look at this other well. Actually, I like this one better. Okay, so once you have the look and feel of this projected line of section, we're going to go ahead and say File, Save as Template. And when you save a template, you're going to want to give it a name that means what it does. So in this case, it's a projected straight well template. So whenever I select this template in the future, it's going to be when I'm creating a projected line of section. Your template is going to automatically be stored in the template tab for all future cross sections. So if I come up here and do a brand new cross section, double click on projected straight well, it's going to come up looking like this. Okay, so that is how we make the templates. The next kind of more characteristic and typical cross-section that you would want to make is the traditional well-to-well cross-section. I'm just going to go ahead and minimize. I can easily save a cross-section by doing File, Save As, File, Save. I'm just going to go ahead and minimize it down here. Now what I'm going to do is go ahead and select a traditional well-to-well cross-section. We just come up to Cross-section, define well-to-well. Your cursor turns into a crosshair, and then we can just go ahead and click and select various wells that we wish to include. I'm just going to do some kind of east-west. When you're finished, you either double-click or just do a right mouse button and end definition. Now, one other comment I'd like to make is when you are clicking on your map, you can just select a well, do a right mouse button, and you can actually also see the available log data listed here in this little drop-down box. So it's very easy. Or you could choose your favorite Geo Atlas map that happens to have, you know, where all the rasters are, where all the good vector wells data are, etc. So you can easily use those layers as well. Okay, so here we are in our well-to-well cross-section. When it first opens, we just get those good old stick figures because we really haven't built a template that that displays our well-to-well equally spaced cross-sections. So I'm just going to quickly pop up here and select a few things just to show that we can select the template for up here. I'm going to select our same template from the Wells Logs tab. I'm going to go to the layout, and I'm actually going to create a classic cross-section you would use to correlate wells, meaning you want those wells as close as possible. I'm going to go ahead and put 1 inch, equally spaced straight wells. I'm going to go ahead and one more time clip it so we aren't dealing with a lot of excess space and maximizing our real estate. And I'm just going to pop in and go ahead and put well ID, TD, just a little something here at the top. I'm going to say OK, and instantly we've got our cross-section displaying those nice log templates that we've got. I'm going to go ahead, you can move this over. Name of the game is to maximize the amount of space you have to work with. I'm going to go ahead and open this up. Now, the beauty here is that we can also at any time, remember with our Active Well tab, actually I kind of opened that too much, we can select a well. Let's say this particular well, I'd like to see if there happens to be some raster data associated with it, and lo and behold, we do have a couple of log images. So what I can do is I can pop up to my system templates where I know I've got this great raster 2-inch any template, and I can apply that template to the active well. And what it automatically does, since it's the any template, is it goes and it picks the first raster image that's in the list and it throws it in there. You can also just click on any raster image and apply to any image and stick in a different image. So these are all just readily available to throw in here and utilize. You can also have many different raster logs all side by side, or you could even create a template that has a vector log right next to the raster image for the same well. All these things are possible by just doing a right mouse button, popping into Prism, and changing your template, doing a refresh, and voila, you will get that new raster showing up, new template showing up. Okay. Notice that the wells are really close together. When we built smartSECTION, we really wanted to make it easy to use. And in those days, people still used paper on desktops. So we wanted to emulate the act of moving a piece of paper on a desk. So you can grab your wells, you can move them around. You can also use the log slipping tool. move your logs up and down. Everything that you used to be able to do with paper. I know that there's probably several youngsters out there that have never seen a paper log probably, but basically here we just want to be able to emulate everything you would do on your desk. Another really nice feature is if you want to hang your logs stratigraphically, you just click the space bar on your keyboard and boom, you will see all your relationships related to some moment in time and the underlying cross-cutting relationships that may exist. If you don't like stratigraphic hanging, you just do a control space bar on your keyboard and you can hang the logs structurally. So it's very easy to manipulate. We even have a feature that is present in next section that's called the Create Correlation Log tool. If you have a surface selected, you can go ahead and take a picture of that log, move it over, and then pick the top in a different log. So that is also available for use. All right, John, any more questions come in?
We have a fairly quiet group out there, but I did want to make a couple comments. A couple things about template building and raster logs. First of all, if you've used Crosssection, you know that you're limited to 3 raster tracks. But here in smartSECTION, because you're using Prism templates, you can put many more raster tracks in a particular log. As Bev mentioned, you can also mix raster and vector very easily, and the rasters are very high quality as opposed to the rasters in a Prism template in Crosssection. And in addition, we now have the ability, in the lower left of this dialog right here, which was up for a moment,
oh, sorry, go ahead, John.
To alias your image names, which you couldn't do in Crosssection. So if you've got 400 raster image names, 30 of which are neutron density log types, you can alias them all to one default neutron density name. So you no longer have to build a raster template that has 25 or 30 potential log names in it. So I just wanted to make that comment. I think it really enhances the workflow experience in smartSECTION.
And also just the fact that you can just quickly get in here, change your template, save that template, and bring it back into the cross-section. There's this nice, clean avenue to changing your templates. Okay, back to our quiet group here. All right. I want to comment on one other very important thing that often confuses people. What we're going to do right now is we're going to compare our well-to-well cross-section with other cross-section we made earlier, which was our projected line of section. Okay. I'll just talk about the projected line of section here for a moment so we can see what we're doing. I'm going to zoom in on our well log. What you're going to notice on a projected line of section is you're going to see some little solid or hollow sideways triangles. The solid triangle means that there was a pick made on that well at the site of the well. This is the pick or formation top, which is stored in well base. This pick was either interpreted by you, the geologist, or imported from some outside source. If the pick is hollow, it means that smartSECTION estimated its position based on the nearby picks. If it's solid, it's obviously your pick. If the well is far away from the line of section and the stratigraphy is not layer cake and there's some dip in the area, the surface that's associated with that pick will not intersect the exact pick itself because it's either up dip or down dip from the pick on the well. So the triangle-shaped symbol is a reminder to the geologist that the pick is not on the line of section, but rather picked at the site of the well. The closer the well is to the line of section, the closer the depth of the surface and pick will be. This brings to mind that one kind of cool feature here when you're dealing with projected lines of section is, let's say you wanted, you didn't believe me and you're like, okay, I want to see if my projected section is right on top of that well. Are these two items going to coincide? So you can actually do a real-time moving of your line of section and it will immediately update here. So depending on what surface I'm looking at, we can go ahead and see as I get closer to that well, then my surfaces are going to be actually being closer and intersecting the picks. Now, in contrast, on the well-to-well cross-section, you're going, as when you pick a surface, I'm just going to click on my Surfaces tab and pick the Minikata here. What you will see is a solid or a hollow square at the site of each well on the well's borehole. This represents the formation top that was picked on the actual well itself. A square means the well log image is on a well-to-well cross-section, meaning the cross-section is actually going through the actual side of the well bore. So here you can feel very comfortable deciding that you're going to actually move a pick or change it. Believe me, in this particular case, your surfaces should always intersect your picks. If they don't, that's when you should call John and I. When you do pick a well, a formation on a well, these are stored in the well base formations data tab. So you will actually be able to instantly see that pick appear in your formations data tab. And just to make a comment on that, you can just select a well, do a right mouse button, and anytime you want, you can view well in well base. Your well base will open up and you will be able to see in the formations tab your picks. So you have a pretty instant access to your database here from smartSECTION, which is a very nice feature. Now, in terms of picking, what we can do here is I'm going to go ahead and actually delete a couple of picks and then just repick them just to show how we can pick tops very easily. We can also delete tops very easily. You select a top, you hit the delete key on your keyboard, and you will get several options. I'm just going to go ahead and delete 2 of these. What you're going to notice is that smartSECTION in the particular mode that I've got is going to try to pick the top for you. You will always know that it's smartSECTION's best guess because the square will be hollow and the line will be dashed. So you will know that that's smartSECTION's best estimate based on its model, based on all the other picks that you've made, as to where in general that pick will be. You can choose to ignore it if you want. We can also choose to even turn it off, which I'll show you in a minute, which a lot of people like to do. To pick a surface, you just make sure that it's selected in your Surfaces tab. You click on the Add Surface Points tool, verify indeed that that is the correct surface you wish to pick, and then you just click. Okay? The pick is made, it's instantly stored in Wellbase, and let's say that I made a mistake and that I wanted to move it. All you do is hit the Tab key on your keyboard, and the Picker tool becomes the Select tool, and you can just move your surface up and down at will. Then if you want to continue picking, you hit the Tab key again, and you're on your way. So no need to keep coming up and down from the toolbar. We've tried to really make the flow very easy to do of picking. All right, so that's the bottom line. It's that easy to go ahead and pick. You can also pick inter-well points in between the wells. So typically here, in a case like this, we would go ahead, we'd select a surface, we'd go ahead and hang that surface. We'd use some of those tools that we used earlier to either just move the well closer or see what's going on. Now, how's our time going, folks? Hello?
Bev, it looks like we have about 15 minutes at the most, maybe a little less. We do have a couple of questions that came in.
Okay, excellent, John. Let's take those.
Yeah, again, people are always curious about whether you can convert your existing cross-section sections into smartSECTION cross-sections. And yes, starting with version 2012 of Discovery, we have a conversion utility. So you absolutely can convert those cross-sections over into smartSECTION cross-sections.
And I just want to add a little to that, John, is that what you'll be converting is the list of wells in that cross-section. You will have to have an interpretation and a smartSECTION template built so that when you open up that list of wells, you can bring it in looking any way you wish. But, you know, if you had, you know, custom colors and all these fancy things in that old cross-section, those do not convert. You would need to redo that template here in smartSECTION.
Yeah, it's about a 75 or 80% solution. I absolutely agree with that.
Right.
Let's see, there's a couple of more here. Maybe I could pick one of them out here. How do you, once you've moved a log for correlation, maybe you've dragged it around, how do you put it back in its correct structural position?
We just do a right mouse button respace horizontally.
No, structural, vertically, put it back structurally.
Oh, you just control space bar.
Perfect.
We'll take it back to a structural image.
And let's see if there's anything else here. Looks good for now.
Okay. Another thing is some folks just aren't comfortable with the fact that smartSECTION has a mind of its own, so you can easily go ahead and turn things off. If you only want to see the pics that you've made, you can just do a right mouse button, go to draw modes, and say no surface projection, and then you won't get smartSECTION going off and creating surfaces that you're not familiar with or that you didn't pick yourself. So in this particular case of the MLBS, I could just go ahead and start picking it if I felt I wanted to, with no assistance from smartSECTION, obviously, and do your own thing. Let's talk about those modes a little bit more. The modes are really important because as I said earlier, both in the projected and in the well-to-well cross-sections, you are seeing for the first time these kind of shaped surfaces in between the wells. Things are not straight line. This has caused a problem with a couple of people's bosses. They don't like to see squiggly lines, although honestly, these squiggly lines have led to prospects. Obviously, the line's not going to look as nice when you've squished the wells together. If I were to proportionally space this specific cross-section, you wouldn't even know that there's undulations going on here. I'm just going to proportionally space this cross-section for a moment and zoom out so we can see them in their kind of true position. You can see that things don't look abnormal, but let's just say you wanted to see a real purely straight line. You're correlating. You don't want all this inner well business going on. Let me go back to my equally spaced. I can just simply do a right mouse button, draw modes, and choose straight line mode, and then you are going to get that classic traditional X section look. Okay, so you have the choice is yours as to which of these modes you're going to use. Also, if you wanted, you can even do a center to center where this kind of shows the real stratigraphy, but connecting the center of the logs to each other. In this particular case, the logs are way close together, but perhaps if I go back into a proportionally spaced, it would make a little more sense to use a center-to-center mode. So we'll just go from the center of the borehole to the center of the next borehole. All right, I'm going to go back to equally spaced. Bottom line is it's extremely easy. Center edge to edge is what I wanted. Okay. It's extremely easy to use this tool. You just need to know how to get started to set up that performance, those 6 items where you're making sure that your surfaces are in their correct position, that you've got your sources picked, and that you're modeling the picks that you've always had. So at this point in time, any of you could pop into your projects and you can go ahead and open up a new interpretation and go to GeoSurfaceModel Properties, select the formations that you wish to use if you know what your source is and if they're in correct chronostratigraphic order. So that's basically all I was going to discuss right now. I just wanted to end with one other comment, one really nice feature about owning Frame Builder. I'm going to go ahead and go back into true space mode, and I'm going to project my surfaces because you do need to have that on in order to see anything in a projected line of section. But if you are changing, you can come in here, you can turn on your tops, and you can instantly show them like I showed earlier. You can, for example, that's on the top of the Minnolusa unconformity. If you were to change anything in your cross-section like I'm about to do here, I'm going to grab that, and let's just say I made a mistake, and you pull it up. If you've got the exact same map selected here as the surface that you're moving, you will get a real-time change in your surface of your map. So for example, the OPG, I'm going to go ahead and turn it on, and if I grab one of these and move it, my contour map just changed there at the location of the cross-section. So that's a real benefit of having Frame Builder, is that you can absolutely keep track of what you're doing with your ISO maps. course, you can also, and another thing that you just can't do in Geo Atlas very easily, of course, is just go ahead and turn on the intersection of an unconformity with any surface you want. So for example, I'm going to turn the OPG off, I'm going to turn on the MLBS surface, and I'm going to go ahead and show the intersection of that unconformity. And when I say these things happen at a push of a button, they literally do. There's no multi-fancy map making or anything like that. Another thing you can do is instantly take this map and select the surface that you've made and create an isomap layer and take it back to Geo Atlas, give it a name. You can include intersections and fault polygons. Take it back to Geo Atlas and actually use a different mapping algorithm and work with this layer. Right now in Frame Builder, the only layers that are created are, it's a triangulation method of creating the contours. You can easily, one thing that's really useful is you can come in here, change the contour spacing, and most importantly, you can actually show the values of your points. This is one of my favorite features. I'm just going to boost up the size here so we can get in here and see it. You can see your data points right on your map, and they will correspond to your surfaces being picked. So I think that's pretty much it. Morgan, we covered a lot today, and I really appreciate the time you spent. Now, while I'm really comfortable with using this software, you may not be so after one session. So please know that everything I've said can be sent to you in some white papers that I wrote. I did one on performance and one on building cross-sections. And as Morgan will be telling you here soon, you will have access to this actual webinar. One final note is we'll probably do another webinar early next year that focuses on the more advanced abilities of smartSECTION. So those of you who attended today will automatically be put on an invitation list and invited back. And I'm probably going to focus on the details of faults, unconformities, and the all-important conformance tool. John, any last question?
There was one individual who was trying to follow along and who was having trouble making a well-to-well cross-section. He didn't realize that when that little flyout box popped up with different map entities on it, you had to click the well ID, and I just mentioned that in the lower left-hand corner of the map view, you've got a selectable dialogue, and you can uncheck everything but a wells layer, and that way you won't have that issue with other entities popping up when you're making a well-to-well cross-section.
And you also want to put that well layer up on top here,
Yep.
So it's the first item selected. So bottom line is you click on a well, you choose its name, you do a right mouse button, you can add it to an active cross-section, open it up in a new cross-section.
Yeah,
very good question.
Yeah, and you had another, this particular layer, you're using a Geo Atlas layer that has posted text. So it's still going to happen. So if you go to the actual smartSECTION wells layer and make that the only one selectable, then you won't have that problem. The only thing you'll be able to grab will be the wells.
Right, so I'll just come in here, see I have a wells layer that's made by smartSECTION, nothing to do with Geo Atlas. I can do define well to well and just quickly grab those, double click, cross-section opens, apply my template, and boom, you're off and running.